Hi everyone and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill and I am joined as ever by indie dev Mr. Chris Jarvis.
Hello.
Let's do this. So this week we are going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about some exciting news from Xbox. Exciting news, not really. Like, it's bad news for some people, but good news for others, or wherever you stand. But we'll get to that.
Depends what console you've got, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Depends where you are and what camp you're in. Also, some really good news for Sony, apparently. Like, that has come out in an interview about all of their new games that they've got in the pipeline. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. And also, we're going to be talking about yours daily company that I'm currently working at. Like, they've had some headlines this week. Like, people aren't too happy with Ubisoft, so we're gonna do a bit of mentioning about that. Try and clear some things up, but also we'll just discuss stuff as well to see how it pans out. But first, Mr. Chris Jarvis, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I've had an interesting week. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, very good. I've had a lot of things die this week, as I mentioned in the pre-show. Like, my phone died, and then my Cintiq died, which is my display tablet, which I paint on for a living. Like, everything just died all at once. But I recently got a bonus from work, so everything's already paid for. So it's all good. So I'm just replacing everything this week, so up and down.
So newsflash, Ubisoft are giving out the bonuses at the moment, I guess you can say now. That's an exclusive.
Yeah, well, they give out bonuses all year round, to be fair. They're very nice to us.
Couldn't let us have it.
They treat us well. Sorry, I don't want that to be a headline. No offense to you or anything, but...
So Cintiq, so Ubisoft concept artists tend to use Cintiqs then?
I think industry-wide we normally use Wacom tablets, which you get the choice if you want to use a Cintiq or if you want to use an Intuos, which is basically the difference between an Intuos and a Cintiq is that a Cintiq is a screen that you draw directly onto. So it feels like you're drawing on paper pretty much. But an Intuos is you're drawing on a tablet which is on your desk, but you're actually looking up at your monitor while you're drawing, so it's sort of separated. And there's people that prefer either or a lot of the time, so it's kind of strange. Like, I work next to guys that despise Cintiqs. Like, they can't stand them, they don't like them. Like, they just feel like it's too much like drawing on paper.
Drawing on someone's face sort of thing. Like, I can see what I'm drawing, and it's like, Yeah.
They like the disconnect sometimes. Like, and there is a freedom to that, I guess. But like when I switched over to a Cintiq about 5 years ago, I was like, oh, this is it. I can't go back now. This is amazing. So I draw directly on the screen now. But this time around, I didn't actually go for a Wacom or a Cintiq. I decided to go for another company called Huion. I think it's Huion. I don't know how to pronounce it. But I think it's a Korean or a Chinese company. But there's been a lot of competition within the Cintiq base. I know this is riveting conversation, by the way, but I'm gonna plow through it as quickly as possible. There's been a lot of competition that's come about in the Cintiq space and graphics tablets and stuff, and it's really good because Wacom have been increasing their prices like over the last decade, just up and up and up and up and up. And now that there's some competition creeping in, I'm gonna try and support the competition, so it sort of, brings Wacom a bit further down to earth because they make really good products. They're really, really overpriced. So I made the switch this time.
I've had my Intuos for years and years and years. I've had some problems with the drivers, but
always.
Yeah,
that's an endless.
That's
thing.
like their trademark. Mm-hmm. But there's a big price difference between the two, obviously, because there's a whole screen and a screen that you can draw on with a pen. Yeah. So but I'm looking forward to seeing what you can come up with the new one. Is it arrived yet? Is it being delivered?
No, it's on the way. It's still it's still a few days away, but I'm going from a 13-inch, which is reasonable size, like it's a pretty decent size, but I'm going from a 13 to a 22. So I'm getting way bigger, so I know, right? Mm-hmm. I can sketch like a lot bigger. So it's just the difference between like drawing with your wrist like this and moving with your elbow to do straight lines. It's night and day. Like, it's a really weird thing to like sort of explain, but it gives you a lot more freedom. So I've got a 24-inch at work, which I use, which is a Wacom, which is fucking massive, and it's just like going from that to working from at home with my
on a tiny little
13-inch, and I'm just like, oh, this is awful, So it's kind of a good thing that my tablet died a little bit, because it is time for a new one. So
It's time for a new one. Well, my headphones died, so I'm now
Here we are.
the Steel Series Arctis Pro wireless headphones.
Well, at least it's got a good, snappy, short name.
And the reason why I know the name off by heart is the amount of times I've had to Google it when trying to fix problems. So,
Seems to be a trend.
It's beeping and cutting off and drivers and uninstalling and reinstalling software. But, like I said before in the pre-show, it's the best audio experience I've had listening to music and re-listening to all my music all over again. So after this podcast, when I'm listening to your lovely, lovely voice, it will be like you're in the room with me. So that'll be
I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a good thing at all. Like if you want to like make it sound like I'm actually in the room with you.
Maybe I'll just put on my rubbish headphones then and just make it tinny.
You need some distance. You need some distance anyway. Especially when I'm talking about my 22-inch thing. We'll see.
And your graphics tablet. Shall we talk about
also that? Yeah, we should. What have you been playing?
So I have been playing The Pathless by Giant Squid.
Awesome.
And it is amazing. Austin Wintory is one of my favourite video game composers, and he did a lot of the music for it. And the amazing thing about that game is the interactive audio. I watched a video that Austin put up about it and about how he created the main theme for the game. And at each level, there's like a few levels in the game and there's a few different bosses.
What sort of game is it, like before you dive into it?
It's kind of like it feels like a little indie game where you just play I have to say what you do and you'll get the idea. It's it's a third-person adventure game where it's all about the locomotion and the story and the audio all working together to tell the story. So it's like a story-driven game where you can cover vast distances by shooting targets with your bow, but it feels great. You can't explain it, and it sounded appealing. And for the longest time, I'd put it off because I just thought that it didn't look as though the marketing led me to believe. But it feels great to play. Like, you feel powerful, and you play this woman who's got this hawk, and you can fly a bit, and you can shoot these targets and get around the place and do some puzzles.
I've seen it. It's sort of, it looked like anyway, like she was on sort of a rail almost, and she was just like gliding along through the sort of landscape. Is that's the one I'm thinking?
Yeah,
of, right?
The best way to describe it is you glide along the landscape and above the landscape and in the landscape and around the landscape, and locomotion is really fluid, and it feels great to get places in that game, and it's just a beautiful game to just go in and experience. But for me, what makes it is the audio, in that the theme is different depending on which boss you tackle first, and the theme grows throughout the whole game, and the instruments that are used, and using this new headphones, I could really, really hear it.
True immersion.
It sounded amazing, and they use some really funky instruments, and it's kind of like got Mongolian vibes, kind of folky vibes. And there's lots of different cool elements going on, and it's just such a different sound to a video game that I haven't heard before, that made it feel like it was like a cool little indie game. Had like this very much different I don't know what the right word is. It just feels different, like, to anything else that's around. And so I've been really enjoying that and getting to know that, and I completed it. And it's a short game, so it's great if you're trying to fit in some games that are well recommended, but you need to get through your backlog, which is happening with a lot of people these days.
Yeah,
totally recommend playing that if you're on the fence about it, because it's
awesome.
Just
the composer, like I really love his work. I know he's I think he did the soundtrack for Journey, right?
He did Journey, and he did Assassin's Creed.
That's right, yeah.
Unity. Was that the one with in London? So he did
Syndicate.
Syndicate. Yeah. So he did that, and he's done some other cool stuff. But yeah, most famous for Journey, I suppose. Yeah, he's done some films as well.
Oh yeah, like he's a really, really good composer. Like I actually still listen to the Journey soundtrack when I'm working quite a lot.
Same, yeah.
And yeah, it's just a really good sort of zone out type of song, like soundtrack. Sorry, like it's just it's great to work to, especially when you're coding or something, because it kind of loops around in your head quite a bit while you just sat there like tick-tacking away. You don't really like time just sort of flies by when you listen to that stuff. So
yeah, it's a good one for if time is going to be it's going to be a long time, you can just listen to that and just get lost in it. Oh yeah, I didn't say. He, I tweeted about the game because I really enjoyed it, and I like tweeted him specifically and Giant Squid, and he put some love hearts and he retweeted it, and then a load of people liked it. So that's really cool.
That's always a nice feeling when people hear you. So yeah, I remember I sent a tweet to Ueda once, Fumito Ueda, like the director of Ico. Like it's like I remember when he replied to me like through a message or whatever. I was like, holy shit! Like this guy's like one of my heroes. You know, like I love it when that sort of stuff happens. Also.
Yeah, I love that when I love Twitter. Twitter can be so toxic and so horrible, but you know, like the whole games industry is on Twitter, and it's just great when those cool things can happen, and when people share those cool things. So it makes up for all the doom scrolling that you do when you get those little. Yeah, we'll have
to do an episode one time, just like on all the instances where stuff like that's happened, where just random people have either liked stuff that you've said, and you're like, holy shit, like that guy, you know.
We could do one for you, because you've got some cool stories. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll get around to that one time.
So comment if that's an episode you want to see.
Absolutely. So have you been playing anything else other than the Pathless? The Pathless, if I can say it properly. The Pathless.
No, but I've downloaded God of War, the newest one.
Good man.
I played the old God of War. I don't like the fact that they're the same name. And I couldn't get on with the old God of War, but I've downloaded the new God of War from recommendations from several people. So
including myself, I'm sure.
Yeah, including yourself. So we'll get on with that next. So and literally, might be tomorrow. I'll crack on with that.
Yeah, it's a very I'm sure you'll be very surprised how very different it is. You'll just be like, really? This is the same people? Like this is the same game? Like it doesn't. It's night and day. It's sort of like what Naughty Dog did with if you look at a game like Jak and Daxter.
No?
Yeah,
okay.
if you take it from Jak and Daxter to The Last of Us, you would have never thought that they were the same company.
Yeah.
And they were them games are 4 or 5 years apart, if that.
Right.
It's sort of the same deal with the old God of Wars and the new God of Wars. It's Jesus, this is
Killzone and then
exactly.
Horizon
That's
Zero
another great one. Yeah. So great game. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I'm excited to hear your opinion on joining the club, becoming a member of the greatest team ever, Team Mass Effect. You've been playing Legendary Edition, I've seen on Twitter.
I am. Yeah, I've just started the first game. Obviously, I'm not very far into it. I'm on the third planet or something, after the Citadel. So I've put a good chunk into it already. Probably a good 15 hours, I guess, so far. I'm trying to talk to everyone, trying to do everything. I do have some grievances with it, with old age, which a lot of people are shouting at me for because it's the sort of thinking, because everyone's got their nostalgia glasses.
Everyone's got their own opinions and their own ideas and their own, this is good.
And I respect that. I totally get it. At the time when the game came out, I can imagine it was just mind blowing. And it is a great game. The characters, the world building, the stories that come out of the side quests are just absolutely phenomenal. I can totally see why people are sucked into it. But there are some dated mechanics in the game which grind me a little bit. The fact that you have to go in, there's 3 button presses to get to the map. The fact that there's the lifts absolutely fucking everywhere. Just every 5 minutes you stood in an elevator with your 2 buddies staring at the wall. Yeah. It's just why is this a thing?
But you're getting the fast version. Can you imagine back in the day?
I can't. Every
time you got in a lift, you could get in the lift back in the day and go and make a cup of tea and come back. It was literally do something else because you'll be in that lift for a minute at least.
Yeah, no, hard pass. No, I'm glad that I didn't play back in the day. I mean, there are moments where you get into the lift and it's just it's pretty instant. It's down to the bottom. But it's just when you're in certain locations, I guess. It's not everywhere, obviously. But when you're in certain locations where there's a bunch of small corridors that are all interconnected by these lifts or these elevators or by these doors, and there's just the 10 seconds of getting into the pose animation of all 3 of your buddies just stood there and then coming out of the lift, just that over and over again, it adds up after a while. It gets really annoying. And it's like I'm sort of hoping that like maybe later on they'll add a patch where like when you hit the button to click on the lift, instead of the doors open, it just snaps to the bottom or whatever, and just it's loaded straight away. Like it would be really cool if they could implement that into the PS5 or the Xbox Series X version.
Yeah,
because that's the only thing that really holds me up. On top of that, like I wish Shepard ran a little bit faster, like around the space
around
station.
the Citadel.
Yeah, because she's just the slow jog that she's doing. I'm like. Like I get it's huge and it's nice and it looks amazing and like, oh my god, look how big the Citadel is, but when you've got to run from one side to the other, it's just like like come on, like I get it, like we've got shit to do here, you know.
Yeah,
so it's interesting like how
to get through. Yeah.
Right, exactly, like it's interesting how impatient I've become over the years, I guess, when it comes to these sort of mechanics. But yeah, like totally, like if we could speed this up a little, I'm sure I'll get used to it. But other than that, like I am obviously nitpicking. Like the game itself is absolutely great. Like I remember the first time I tried to play Mass Effect back in the day on the Xbox 360, and the combat was just it was hard to play. Like it was just not enjoyable whatsoever. Like I couldn't even get past what I now know is Eden Prime, which is like the starting sort of tutorial planet.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get past that. It was just so janky and it didn't run very well. It was just awful. I just could not get into it.
Yeah.
So, but now that they've tightened it up and they've included what I now know is the Mass Effect 2 sort of combat system, now that they've implemented all of that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it feels great. Like, it's absolutely fine. It's passable. Like, it's not groundbreaking or anything. I'm not, like, blown away by the combat.
Yeah.
It's very, very passable, but it's playable now, which is important because it allows me to get to all of the stuff which is really cool about Mass Effect, which is the characters, which is the story, and which is all the side quests, like even the random stuff. Like, right now I'm on like a random asteroid, which I'm trying to stop from crashing into another planet or something because someone set it up. And this is just a random side quest, apparently. But even though this stuff is like really quote unquote small in context of the rest of the story, like it's awesome. Like I'm really enjoying it so far.
And I think it's probably widely agreed that Mass Effect 2 is probably the best out of the three. So if you're enjoying yourself on the first one, then it's just going to get better in the second one.
I mean, there is an element to it. Like if I hadn't heard that, if someone had told me like, yeah, 2 and 3 are about the same as the first one, I don't know if I would probably still carry on, sort of thing, like because there are moments where I get caught up on certain things where I'm like, this is kind of outdated, this is kind of old, I don't really want to do this, you know. But knowing that it's only going to get better is very exciting and it's driving me forward. So I'm looking forward to it. Like you'll have to check back in a few weeks to see how far I am though. So
it's great that you're going in fresh because you get that better experience. I don't know if it's better because back in the day, it was the newest, most up-to-date technology. So I went in with it fresh and it was great. You're coming in now knowing that all these people say it's great. So you're coming in from this view that it has to be influenced by these other people's opinions.
Yeah, I've got all these weird expectations now, which this better live up to it. Yeah.
Whereas I'm excited to play it because it's obviously a very character-driven game, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there are certain tasks you can achieve by doing certain things in a certain order throughout the whole trilogy of the games. So there are certain things you have to do in the first game to get an outcome you want in the third game. And I'm really, really excited to play the game again, totally different to the way that I did the first time, because I was Paragon all the way through pretty much. I pretty much never did anything like Rogue at all. Yeah. I was just golden.
So you're gonna start like shooting people and calling them dicks and
I'm gonna be a total badass, and any opportunity for anyone to die, I'm gonna kill them off.
Do it.
Because it's just gonna be totally different to my first experience, and I want to see those reactions and those interactions, and I'm just really looking forward to playing it that way, but knowing what I need to do to get to the end point. So it's like I know the ending already, but I'm really excited to play it through that different lens, if you like.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, like, because from my understanding of these games anyway, not just Mass Effect, but any game, like, it's actually a lot easier to play the game as just a renegade and just go through, like, killing everyone, because you don't have to make any, like, moral decisions about like, oh, how am I gonna like talk them down from this ledge? It's like, no, I just fucking shoot them.
Just shoot them,
like
intimidate them. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly. And it's easier. So it also comes with its own challenges because you'll be locked out at certain conversations and stuff like that. So yeah, I can imagine that is a good driver because I've done that playing. I can't remember what other games have the moral system, but I've definitely played other games where I've just played through like a complete dick all the way through on purpose sometimes, and it does.
It's easier, yeah.
It's a different experience. So maybe just like bump up the difficulty one or something when you go do that. But yeah, other than that,
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. I mean, other than that, before I played Mass Effect, I put a whole week pretty much. Since last week, I was playing a Dying Light. I started replaying this game again. And I ended up finishing it, which I wasn't expecting. Like I thought I'd just play it for a few hours, but I ended up dumping like 30 hours into this thing. Oh. And yeah, there was a good week of killing some zombies, which was always fun. Like I love killing zombies though, so it's always good. But
I've heard about Dying Light 2 that's on the horizon soon. They might have some. Yeah,
I think that's going to be within the next sort of 12 months, I think. Because the only reason why I went back to it was Xbox a couple of weeks ago very randomly, just dropped that they were releasing FPS boost onto like 70 plus games or something they put on. Mm-hmm. Like they just dropped it onto on Series X, just like, yeah, we're 70 games now, we've got frame boost, which is amazing. Like it just came out of absolutely nowhere. Like I think Titanfall 2 got 120 FPS boost. Dying Light obviously got 60 FPS. The Division 1 got 60 FPS boost. Like there was a load of games in there. Like you should go and check out the list if you've got a Series X. Like holy crap, there's a lot of stuff in there. And as soon as I saw Dying Light on that list, I was like replaying that. So I downloaded it, and it's night and day. Like it's absolutely completely different. Like, I played it 30 FPS on the PS4, and it wasn't the smoothest experience, especially with certain things like bows and stuff like that when you're trying to aim. And it's a bit harder to line up the shots when the frame rate's a tiny bit lower. But now that it's at 60, it's kind of like you're just getting headshots every 5 seconds. It's just, it feels a lot different. Obviously.
Makes a real difference.
But, yeah.
We were talking about this before pre-show about the FPS boost, and you're saying now that you're used to a 60 FPS frame rate, you can't really go back down to a 30.
I've kind of turned into a 60 FPS snob, and I don't know if I like it yet. I don't know if
I like myself.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel good about that. So it'll be, I don't know, because we were talking about this in the respect that in sort of 6 months' time, when the first sort of PlayStation games come about, because PlayStation first parties are kind of infamously 30 FPS, and they pretty much always have been. They probably always will be, apart from when they do remasters, or it's certain games they'll do 60 FPS on, but for the high majority of the time it's 30 FPS. But we're sort of in this weird holding pattern right now with both Series X and PlayStation 5, where all the games are from last gen pretty much. All the remasters or the remakes or the ports or anything like that, and they're getting FPS boosts and all this stuff's happening where pretty much all the games that we're playing right now on the new consoles are in 60 FPS. It's just how it's sort of how the chips have fallen at this time, this weird sort of coincidence, luck or bad luck, no matter how you look at it. And now that PlayStation 5 have got Ratchet and Clank in the pipe, they've got that game is running at 60 FPS as well, I believe. And there will be a time. It looks fucking amazing. It looks so good. Absolutely phenomenal. But there will be a time when a game comes around when it's 30 FPS. And it's going to be a new game that's 30 FPS, and people are going to be like, ugh, this is a bit weird.
Yeah.
Which, for people like us that are like tuned into this sort of stuff, we're going to know the difference, or we're going to know like this stuff is coming in. But there's going to be a lot of people out there that aren't FPS snobs. They don't know the difference, and they're just going to pick the game up, and it's just going to feel weird and clunky, and they're not going to.
Muddy.
It's not going to, as they call, like not responsive, because they haven't really they don't understand about the frame rates and stuff like that. All they do, and they just don't care or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see, because we're basically training the gaming population right now what 60 FPS is and how it feels in all these games. And then suddenly at one point or another, when the technology, the games catch up to the technology and everything's going to be back to 30 FPS, there's going to be this weird sort of period where everyone is trying to relearn how to play a 30 FPS game and be okay with it. Yeah. So it's fascinating.
It is weird that how the technology is, it's not like ramping up incrementally. It's like doubling the frame rate. It's crazy if you think of it that way.
Yeah, it's very wild.
So are you playing Mass Effect? What settings? So first of all, what console are you playing it on, and what settings are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on the Series X. I'm playing it at 60 FPS, which is the highest, like the performance rate. I think you can play it at 120 FPS as well if you've got the TV for it, but I do not. So I'm only playing it at 60, and I've got it everything's pre right now.
So is it 4K then? Because I know the 120 is it 120 FPS? That's not 4K, so that's HD.
Yeah, I think that gets knocked down to 1080p.
Or 1080p or 1480 or something.
Yeah, it might be 44. Yeah.
It's not 4K if it's 120. But yeah, if your TV can't do that, so yeah, you might as well have the higher
yeah, I mean, I've tested out the difference between 60 and 120 before. Like I've seen TVs do it. I just cannot tell the difference. Like I've tried and I'm sat there squinting at it. I play a game, can't tell the difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like if I sat down and played 120 FPS games for a long period of time, there might be a day where I could tell the difference, but would it make a difference? Like telling the difference and making the difference are two different things when it comes to this sort of stuff. It's not like 30 to 60 can actually affect your performance when you're playing a game like an FPS or something. But the difference between a 60 and 120, I don't know how much of a difference that would truly make to the average gamer. I just don't think it's enough to really warrant it yet. Anyway, it might in time, but just not yet.
Yeah, I still haven't seen 120 FPS, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the new consoles and testing that out and becoming a frame rate snob.
Absolutely. Yeah, join us.
Should we move on then?
Yeah, we should shift off. So our first news story of the week comes from VentureBeat, which is the resident journalist over at GamesBeat, I guess, is Jeff Grubb, and he sort of dropped a bombshell a couple of days ago. It might have been, it was on, I don't know when it was. It might have been Friday, I think it was. But Jeff Grubb just basically turned around and said Starfield exclusive to Xbox and PC, period. This is me
Friday.
confirming that.
14th, yeah.
Right. So he just dropped this bombshell at Starfield, which is obviously the Bethesda up-and-coming space sort of sci-fi RPG. Especially off the back of like what we just talked about with Mass Effect. Huge deal. Bethesda haven't put out a game from their first, like their sort of top division studio, which is Bethesda GameWorks, since
was it Fallout?
Fallout 4 was their last game.
Or was it Skyrim? No, it would have been Fallout.
Fallout 4, yeah. So that would have been 2015, I think it was. Yeah, so it would have been 2015, 2016, around that time. And that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And they haven't put out a game in 7 years almost. And so this is going to be a big one. The fact that it's just been dropped, that it's a Xbox exclusive, or a Microsoft exclusive, I should say.
So it'll be on PC.
It's also on PC. So that's a good thing, I guess. But the fact that PlayStation fans are now sort of cut out of that is sort of a bummer. But at the same time, it's exciting for Xbox because it means that they're sort of bringing up
relevant in the game.
Yeah, they're being a bit more relevant, I guess. Like there was a lot of complaints last generation about how Xbox quote unquote have no games, and now they've got probably one of the biggest games for the first half of this generation.
Mostly anticipated, and with a studio with a reputation like Bethesda, it's well-founded hype.
Yeah.
Even though we've not seen a single ounce of gameplay, all we know is that
it's coming. That's all we know.
RPG. That's all we know.
Yeah, but how do you feel about this? Like, do you mind that this is an exclusive? Is it like were you expecting different? You know, like what's the Jarvis take?
I am not surprised in the slightest, and to me it wasn't news. I thought I'd already in my head it was already like, I'm sure I heard that everything was going to be exclusive from Bethesda. Like it feels like it's not news to me, but there are some people that are shocked. It's not surprising at all. So I knew it was coming, but because I don't yet have the next gen console and I'm still in that what am I going to buy first phase, a little apprehensive, and it's because we don't know when it's going to be released. You know, what am I going to buy next is still a big question for me.
But does that tick off like in the pros column for
Xbox? It's a huge tick.
Are you actually interested in this game? Like that's one thing I never actually asked you. Okay.
Yeah, because Mass Effect trilogy is probably like one of my. It's my favorite sci-fi game, probably. Period.
Okay.
This is properly 100% up my street. Like, tick, yeah. The only thing might be a bit controversial that makes me think is that Bethesda can sometimes be janky to the point of, lunar narrative dissonance, where it takes you out of the game and you're just laughing at the glitching people.
Yeah, I saw what you mean.
Clipping through the floor.
That's a fair criticism to be. Yeah.
Whereas Mass Effect, their jankiness didn't really take you out of the feeling. Like, you had that. You have that feeling that you are Shepard and you are making these decisions and your actions have these powerful consequences. So that's what I really loved about it. And Bethesda, if I'm thinking like Mass Effect made by Bethesda, I don't know whether or not the effect is going to be the same. So I'm apprehensive. And we're living in this world now where we know that huge, massive studios with great reputations can make games that I've not even bought yet, just off the back of their release.
Cyberpunk is a massive sort of lesson for everyone to learn. I think that actually gives me confidence that Starfield is probably going to be in a better condition than we initially think. I totally agree with your apprehension as well about how Starfield could be a janky mess, like much of Bethesda's titles. Like, even though I absolutely love everything that Bethesda has done, like Skyrim is in my top 10 games of all time. Like Fallout 4 was like a 10 out of 10 game for me. I absolutely loved it and I bought it at launch. I had no problems with it really. Like, obviously you get the Bethesda jank, but it never really pulled me out of the experience. So it was never like too much of a problem. But now that the thing happened with Cyberpunk, I think Xbox are looking at it and saying, okay, we really cannot afford
Hold your horses,
for that to happen.
Make sure it's working, even if you delay it. I would prefer in a couple of years' time, like, just make sure it's finished. I think for Bethesda, that's most relevant out of probably all the other games companies now. To listen to that advice, it should be Bethesda that listened to it, because they were pushing the boundaries of what you could release, and then Cyberpunk surpassed that. And so hopefully Bethesda will take note and go, okay, maybe easy on the jank this time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were nervous about the whole Xbox and Bethesda sort of acquisition and their merger, but with this specifically, in context with this conversation, it brings me a lot more confidence to say that Starfield is probably going to be on a better condition than we think it's going to be. Because when you're for one, it has to be for Xbox because they really, really need a smash hit to sell these. Well, not sell the consoles, but they need to sell Game Pass basically. And this is the thing to drive it, along with Halo Infinite. And on top of that, like the fact that like third parties, when you're like by yourself and you're just trying to survive, like you need to get games out. Like even if they're not at complete peak condition or whatever, like they need to get out, because if they don't come out at the right time, then people don't buy them because of the holiday season and things like this, or if it's in a window between other games that are coming out by other companies. All this sort of like stupid like politics scheduling stuff happens and gets in the way all the time. But now that they're a first party studio and they've sort of been absolved by that, like they don't have to worry about that anymore.
They'll be getting the golden treatment. They'll be getting the first dibs on the holiday slot, and stuff will be moving around for them, I'd imagine.
It wouldn't surprise me if Starfield was originally meant to come out like in this autumn sort of thing, but then it probably got pushed to the first half of next year or something. And they Xbox probably came in and said, take an extra 6 months, polish this thing.
This needs to be good.
Get it perfect.
This can't flop. They spent too much money for it to flop.
And at the same time, it's Bethesda. I don't think it can. Like even if it has got some jank, like I think it'll still sell.
It just depends on how well it'll be received, and I guess people don't care about
that.
This.
Doesn't really matter.
It cares to us. It cares to us, and that's about it. But I'm looking forward to it, and it might make the difference. It might I might buy an Xbox because of Starfield. Like when E3 comes out, and hopefully there'll be some information there that might make me go, definitely buying both now. Or off the back of whatever we see at E3, it might go, I'm only going to buy a PlayStation.
Well, on that note, like moving off onto the next story, because that sort of like ties in with that, where there are other aspects to this which might sort of pull you over to the other side as well, which is the PlayStation camp. Like you're talking about Starfield being the thing that might pull you over to the Xbox One, but this might bring you back over to the PlayStation side. So in our second story, according to Hermen Hulst, a Guerrilla co-founder whom Jim Ryan tapped to lead the PlayStation Studios in 2019, the group has more than 25 titles in development, quote, for the PlayStation 5, nearly half of which are entirely new IP. This is via the Wired.com article, which was done with, I think it was done with Hermen Hulst and Jim Ryan. So it was a few different people were quoted in the article, but this was sort of the big takeaway. A lot of people were talking about this to say that, oh my God, like there's 25 titles in development and half of them are new IP. Like this is big news. So yeah, kind of a big thing to pull you back over to the PlayStation side. What do you think about this?
That is a tasty statistic. That is a big number.
That is something to chew on.
Yeah. And if we just break that down over like me being me, I need to break that down. And I'm like, so it's 25 titles and we're talking like a console cycle is 7 years. Half of those is new IPs. So we're looking at so like 2-ish new IPs every year. But we don't know of that. How many are going to be indie games? They're going to be smaller ones. How many of them are going to be big, massive, big budget AAAs? We don't know. But yeah, if you think about like 2 massive IPs every year, that's quite good.
Yeah.
But PlayStation have got some awesome IPs as it is.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about the awesome IPs that they've got, so they've got God of War, Ragnarok, they've got, Horizon Forbidden West, they've got Uncharted, which who knows what's going to be happening with that. And they could just be taken over in terms of the games that people want to play. So the games that most people want to play are on PlayStation. That could easily be what defines this generation, and that's that of the 25 titles in development.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on this quite a little bit because, like, while I like get the headline and everyone's excited about this and like, oh my God, 25 titles, that's amazing, that's a lot of games. But really, it's kind of like par for the course. A lot of this as well, because like while it's exciting that I guess like half of 25, which by the way, Sony, half of 25, you can't half it unless you've got, you got half a game somewhere, which is like kind of new, but not, but like looking at last gen games, if we're talking 13 games, like giving them like if we're rounding up, so 13 new IP over a sort of 6-7 year period. If you look at like what they did on the PlayStation 4, they had Bloodborne, Drive Club, Knack, Order 1886, Until Dawn, Last Guardian, Horizon Zero Dawn, a load of other small stuff like Matterfall and Bound, Detroit Become Human. There's Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, Concrete Genie, Dreams, Death Stranding. So there's already 15 there that I've just listed, and that was from last gen. So 15 to 13, it's actually kind of part of the course. It's just
less.
Right, it's actually less, but there will be more, obviously, in the pipe, like a couple of years.
But right now, and that list, that's a great list.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there's only a few that's not really on my radar, just the smaller ones.
Yeah.
I mean, Knack, that wasn't very well received, was it?
No, it was a launch title anyway. So.
It was a launch title, and it was just a demo in the amount of polygons they could fit on the screen,
exactly,
basically.
Yeah.
But they listened to that, and this generation, their launch stuff is just great. Like the Astro's Playroom, it's just knocked it out the park. Mm-hmm. And the Ratchet and Clank thing, it's looking amazing before it's even come out. So that's interesting that those actual maths. Yeah, my maths, I was like, that's quite good.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. Like a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people like sort of reacted to it in the obvious way. Like, of course, like why wouldn't this be good news? Like, of course, like oh my God, 25 games and half of them are new IP. That's incredible news. But it's actually kind of part of the course. Like everyone, like this happens every single gen, but we haven't really, like no one's really stepped back and thought about that. But
what Xbox needs to do now is come out and go, we've got 26 titles in development.
and this is the thing. They've got, like Xbox have just they've just acquired, like over the past few years, they've now got 26 studios, I think. 26.
Right.
And of them 26, I think there's like 5 of them which have multiple teams on them as well. So there's a couple of teams that have got like 3+ projects in the works as well.
Yeah.
So Xbox just like need to. I don't think Xbox are ahead, like by any means. Like I still think they're behind because they've got a lot to prove. And like you said before with PlayStation, they've got a lot of awesome IP already that they can just expand on, and it's only going to get better. Like a Ghost of Tsushima 2 is just going to be amazing. Like I could, yeah, right. It brings me butterflies just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like I will marry that game.
Can you imagine that, but a bit better? No, I can't imagine that a bit better. Like it's almost perfect game
on a new console as well.
On a new console. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be excited about, but
over the next. But that's going to be like a long way away. It's going to be
this is the thing I did want to mention. When it comes to a new IP, when you're talking about development time, it normally takes about 5-6 years on average to finish a game from start to finish if it's a new IP. Because there's a lot of new systems and things that you need to develop out. Sometimes it can be a bit shorter, especially if you're reusing technology from another IP. Like with Uncharted, I'm guessing like a lot of that tech that was used in The Last of Us Part 1 was probably taken from Uncharted. Like they probably used the same engine. They probably used a lot of like animation systems that they had and stuff like that. So I can imagine that transferred off quite well, even though it's a new IP. But there's like even then it's probably still took them a good 4 or 5 years to finish that project. So there's going to be this stuff spread out over a whole generation. Like absolutely. Like it's good news. But it is part of the course. It's
if you're looking at when games get released and the console generation, like mid to late generation is when in my opinion, mid to late generation is when the better stuff comes out.
I agree.
Really. So it might be a bit thin on the ground this first generation, this early on in the generation, but Returnal was really well received. So they're off to a good start, and Xbox have yet to compete with that. I think at this stage,
Xbox have sort of shown their hand a bit too early. I think like they've announced a ton of stuff, like an absolute ton of stuff. They just need to start delivering now and showing like we've shown you the goods and we've got the goods, like here they are, sort of thing. So I hope that they sort of follow through and they don't just like follow this sort of Game Pass subscription service too much to the point that they forget about like the reason why people are opting into the service, which is the games.
To buy games. So, yeah. And I think before the last generation, it was very much, I'll buy this and I'll play these games, and I'll buy this and I'll play these games. That is not what people think about anymore, because Game Pass is in there. Frame rate is a factor now, because before they were very much similar. I would say last generation, there's not much between them in terms of performance. No. And now there's all these other factors that you've got to think about, and games is just one tiny part of that. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, when all's said and done, because like you said, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 were quite close, but they still had their differences. Like the Xbox One was still like underpowered compared to the PS4, I guess, but it wasn't so much that it completely like you had to split the games up almost. Like they could still release on both systems, like the third-party publisher, so it wasn't too bad. But this generation, they're even closer. Like they're super close. Like the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 are like the differences between that power output is just, it's really minimal. It's like it's not even worth mentioning if there is a difference. Like we're talking about teraflops, which doesn't really matter when it comes to like computation in certain scenarios. Like it's just, they're very, very similar. They're very, very close. The thing that's making the difference this time though is the external services like Game Pass, and like what is going to happen with PlayStation now,
or not do.
How are PlayStation going to react to this sort of stuff. So all of this stuff is going to be influenced in some weird way, which we're not quite used to yet.
Like 70 quid a game as well. That's a factor. I mean, every generation, every new console generation, they increase the price. But in this day and age, £70 or $70, that's a lot for
a lot of money.
People, especially, post-COVID and stuff, people that were affected badly. There are some people that got lots of savings. That's great. But there are a lot of people that, don't, and they can't.
Yeah, I mean, the value between Xbox and PlayStation right now is just, it's night and day. Like, I know PlayStation is very much outpacing Xbox in terms of hardware. Like, absolutely. That goes without that goes without saying. But there are sort of interesting cracks within that itself, because like it's really hard to get hold of a PlayStation 5 right now.
Yeah.
And because of that, the reason that's like a big deal is because just this past month, the Xbox Series X outsold the PlayStation 5 in the UK. Which is very interesting. And it's not that Xbox are getting more and more popular, which I'm sure they are in their own right as well. But I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that people just cannot get hold of a PlayStation 5, and now they're bleeding customers to the other side. So it's sort of like this weird dynamic
especially people that want both eventually. Like, or it could well be that if an Xbox is available and there's something that I really want to play on Xbox and PlayStation isn't available, I'll buy Xbox and then I'll buy a PlayStation 5 towards the end of the console cycle. It's probably not what they want to hear. And I'll just do my backlog of PlayStation 5. I could see that happening.
I mean, we mentioned, like we spoke about this earlier, but like the whole crowd of people that just play one sort of type of game, and they just like they buy one console and then they buy the same game over and over again, like every year, like something like FIFA or Call of Duty, and that's all they play. Like, or they'll just buy Grand Theft Auto 5 and that's it.
Or Forza or F1 games.
Yeah, right. And these are hugely popular games that we don't really talk about that much, like in terms of like when games media are covering E3 and things like this, but they're huge, massive games that like sell gangbusters. But they're the people that are picking up Xbox Series X's right now, because they're just like, why? I can't get hold of a PlayStation 5, but FIFA is on the Series X, so I'll just grab that. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just a different controller. Like, I'll get used to it. Yeah. So it's this weird sort of dynamic that we're going through right now. So
it'd be interesting to see how far that goes. Coming back to your question though, I'll ask you this: which studio would you like to see a new IP from with PlayStation, and what sort of game do you want?
That is a good question.
You wrote it, Vin. Come on.
I know I did. I totally forgot about it. Like, I was going to ask you it, so like you've sort of turned it around.
I'd have been stumped, though. I'd have been stumped.
I am stumped.
I can't think of any game in my brain that's not being serviced. Like, every itch of game is I've heard about something that's like fulfilling that. There's nothing that I'm left wanting for, apart from maybe like what was promised for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, maybe we'll get that game one day. I'm sure like when Cyberpunk gets its next gen version at some point or another, probably next year at some point, I'm sure. When that comes around, I'm sure that game will be fine. Will it be incredible like people are expecting? No, probably not. But we'll get some version of that game eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah. But what about you? Is there anything? There's no big voids. That's the thing about the games industry. There's like
everything's getting filled right now.
They're covering the bases all the time, because if there's a niche stuff, it'll be filled.
Yeah, I guess like the only thing that I want more of is I like action adventure games. Like they're my jam. Like, I hope that we don't like move away too far from them, and we keep getting them sort of games. Like, there's one of my favorite companies is a company called Gen Design, which are the people that make The Last Guardian, and they split off from Sony a few years ago, and they've got their own independent studio now. So I'm really excited to see what they're working on next. But that's very much part of the course. So I'm not sure like studios that are working on stuff. I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting to see like something like Naughty Dog go back to something a bit more cartoony, and work on like a new Jak and Daxter or something like that. That'd be interesting. Like, just so they have a palate cleanser or something, so they're not working on all this really depressing stuff.
They need one. Gosh.
Yeah.
They need that. I mean, I guess I haven't played a cowboy game since Red Dead Redemption 2. There's and I guess now there's wizardy stuff, because there's wizards, cowboys, Vikings, aliens, monsters. And that's all there is, isn't there? And everything's being filled except cowboys hasn't been filled for a while. Maybe gangsters, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So something cowboyish.
Yeah, cowboyish. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like a big fan of like stuff that's set in Japan, I guess. Like that, I think that's a given. Like, considering my history and stuff.
Considering you invented Assassin's Creed Japan, yeah. Right,
and probably had some part to play somewhere in a very small piece, like to do with Ghost of Tsushima because of that. But Yeah, I don't know. Like, I haven't really got anything. Like, I would obviously still love to see like an Assassin's Creed set in Japan, but we've got Ghost of Tsushima 2 on the way, I'm sure. So, like, I am all set. Like, I'm happy. Like, that's the only game that I really want, I guess. Like,
Oh, that reminds me, actually. Yeah, there's that game that's coming out on PlayStation that's like a little indie game that I wrote down for prep for next week's talk. Kenya Bridge of Spirits.
Oh yeah, Kena. This does look like an amazing game. It's a bit.
Not
I think
Kenya.
it's Kena.
Yeah, it's Kena. I just said Kenya for some reason.
Kenya, right? It's the closest word to Kena, I guess. But yeah, that game looks absolutely phenomenal. That's another one. It looks like a Pixar movie, pretty much. Like it's kind of astounding. I actually think like some of the writers and directors, I guess, like the actual animators, like the people that created the game, I think they're ex Disney workers or something. I think, like, I'm pretty sure they worked in the animation industry before they switch over to games.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm really curious to see how that game comes out, actually, because it does look really good. But I know it's a bit cheaper of a price as well, so it might be a bit short. I'm not sure.
We shall see. So Vin, what have you been up to at work? What you've been putting the cat amongst the pigeons at work, Vin? You've been going around telling everyone, let's make Ubisoft free to play. Let's see what that.
I have. It was all me. Like, I apologize.
It was your
like
idea,
this,
wasn't it?
Yeah. I planted the seed. I figured, you know what, it's time. We need to switch over to free to play because it's the way forward. I've seen the light, and this is it.
But tell me about. I've heard is that Ubisoft becoming free to play, and then the internet in one little corner of the internet's exploded, and I've just gone. That can't be it, because I'd see more than one article and it would be front page everywhere. So it's not happening, is it? It's not free to play.
No, it's not. I mean, this is the thing. Like, Ubisoft had what we call financial calls, which is they basically call their investors and tell them what's going on with the company and how awesome they're doing and how awesome the next year is going to be. Like, please give us more money, sort of thing. It's what happens when you're a business and you got stockholders. But during the financial meeting, it was sort of taken out of context, but there was a quote which was given, like what all these articles sort of picked up and what people on Twitter sort of honed in on, which was the fact that people started saying Ubisoft is, quote unquote anyway, Ubisoft is shifting away from its traditional strategy of releasing 3 to 4 premium AAA titles each year and plans to launch high-end free-to-play games for all of its biggest franchises. People took that and ran with it. They started saying Ubisoft is no longer making AAA games. They're only making free-to-play games. They're abandoning the AAA market and they're not making any single-player games anymore. It's all over. The world's going to end. Shelter your kids. They're coming to get them. All that sort of stuff.
The absolutely death of Assassin's Creed. No more Assassin's Creed.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, people are like, oh, Assassin's Creed's going to be free-to-play by the end of the year and stuff like this. And it kind of...
Right.
Like, I was sitting back and just looking at this stuff like, you guys are insane. Like, how the hell did you come up with this?
So you just have to buy all the skins, or I don't, yeah,
right, stuff like that. Which obviously this was a misquote, and it was kind of interesting to see all of the like the different outlets sort of scramble and have to do updates and stuff after there was clarifications put out to say like, no, that's not what we meant whatsoever. So Ubisoft told like this one came from videogameschronicle.com, like never heard of them. Ubisoft has told Video Games Chronicle that free-to-play push does not mean that they will release less premium AAA games. It just means that they're expanding more into free-to-play, which is how it should have been perceived, which is they're still going to put out the same amount of games. We're just adding more to the pile, if that makes sense, which is going to be to free-to-play stuff.
The wording was a bit misleading.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I'd have read that, I'd have gone, they mean they're going to start doing free-to-play games.
Yeah. I mean and clickbait as well. Like, there was a combination of a load of like weird stuff going on, but what ultimately means is that Ubisoft are still going to be making the same like type of games, but they're also going to be expanding into other stuff as well and probably growing the company, like, if anything. Yeah. So it means more jobs for developers as well. So kind of good news. But people obviously have this weird stigma against free-to-play games. So I sort of get like the negativity that came around from it as well. But just the clarification is important, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, to me, it just smacks of, the world's largest video game company in one of the world's most fastest growing industries, one of the fastest, most expanding and technologically most, evolving things is expanding and growing. And okay, that sounds about right. they'd be stupid not to.
Yeah.
So that's how that's my initial reaction. So now you've got that reaction. That's my reaction to that.
Fair enough.
That's
I mean, the thing that was, it was just fascinating to see people's overreactions, I guess. Like, that's the better way to look at it, because we're very much in this weird vacuum where people that are covering this stuff are like hyper into like AAA games, and like we constantly look at, this game sold 1 million to 10 million units, and we're constantly in this pocket of games which we're talking about, which is games like The Last of Us, like Ghost of Tsushima, like Spider-Man. They're always in this same sort of frame of AAA games, is what we call them.
Yeah.
But what we don't really realize is that free-to-play is now completely taken over the industry to the point that it's way bigger than
huge.
anyone sort of really realizes. Like, free-to-play makes up about, like, they've sort of estimated over the past year that free-to-play makes up about 70% of the games industry now. 70. So 30% of the industry is now for the AAA sort of system. So the fact that more studios haven't flipped completely to free-to-play is sort of astounding to me, as it is. So,
well, it's new. It's still new. It's still in its infancy as a genre, I guess you could say, within the games industry. Like,
I think that's fair.
It's its own genre now. It's like established. It used to be just like, we'll just do this. We won't spend as much time, effort, or energy into this game, and it'll be a free to play. But kids kept buying skins, which is, to me, which is one of the biggest problems with a free to play game, is that it's the buy to win aspect, which you can't get away from when you're playing something like a competitive FPS, where
that's fair. Yeah.
What color you are will determine how well a human's eye can perceive it against the background. It's just that's just physics and facts, and that's just humans. So
I mean, you say that, but like the top selling like pieces of skin are like the ultraviolet pink things. So like they're just like making themselves bigger targets, which is funny. True. Like, it's hilarious to me. But yeah, the thing that I find fascinating, like, I've been watching a lot of videos and people reacting to this news, quote unquote, of just like Ubisoft moving more into free to play, and they've already announced like some initiatives into this, which is the new Division game, which has already been announced. That's going to be a free to play game, which is the third game is just going to be a free to play, which it sort of fits in that model, I guess. Like, it's a looter shooter, like you're picking stuff up and stuff. So it kind of makes sense, and there's a lot of people that were asking for that anyway. So I get it. Like, I'll probably play it. I'll probably be into it as well. But it's just fascinating, like, though, to see people overreacting to the negative side to this, as if their opinion, like, over the other 70% of the industry is more important. Yeah. Which I think it's really interesting dynamic that is starting to turn.
Never play free to play games have a real problem with free to play games.
Right.
And it doesn't affect their AAA games at all.
And even if it does, like who are they to say that their opinion, which is within the 30% and not the 70, is more important than the other 70? Because at the end of the day, these are companies that are trying to survive, trying to grow, trying to expand. And if more people are playing free to play games, like, why wouldn't they expand into that? Like, it just makes sense. Like, I don't agree with it. Like, I hate free to play games. I'm just not into that sort of model of game. I don't really find that attractive as a gamer. I like playing games which have a start, a middle, and an end. I see credits, I enjoy it. Like, wow, that was a great experience. Put it to one side. I'll replay it in a couple of years. It'll be great. I don't want to play games forever. Like, I don't want to play the same game without credits just over and over and over again. Like, I'm just not that sort of gamer. So I understand like the negativity, but like, we've got to like remove this sort of presumption that like that 30% opinion of the industry is more important than the 70, because it's not. Like, there's all these kids that are coming into the industry now that are playing all these games and absolutely loving them, and they're sat in that 70%. Like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. Like, more free to play games. We love this.
I want my skins. I want my bright purple outfit to go with these kills that I'm doing. And it's like a status.
Who the hell are we to say
like fashion?
Wise, you know?
It's interesting. I mean, it's an expanding industry, and the population is growing. Therefore, there are more younger kids now than there were before, and so on and so on and so on. So the more kids get into games, and the more, because I think free-to-play games fits a younger model, like, more kids got the time, the budget is in the right place for them. It's social and of the moment. that all ticks the younger audience box for me. I think the stats will show the same thing as well. It's a lot of kids playing it, and so why shouldn't there need to be catered for? And fair enough. They'll grow up, just and their needs will change and their time will change. They won't have as much time to play on video games. Like us, like time is precious. Smaller. I guess
that is
the smaller games I want to play. Like,
I guess that is the thing, though. A lot of people, like, whenever this sort of conversation comes around, like, our free to play is taken over. Like, I remember like 5-10 years ago when everyone was like freaking out about the mobile games industry, and they thought, oh, this thing's going to take over and there's going to be no more AAA games. It's going to swallow the whole industry, and we're never going to make like another like God of War or anything like that again. Obviously, that didn't happen. That's ridiculous. It just grew and expanded to accommodate both. And I think free to play is doing the same thing at this point as well. Like we're still selling like these massive AAA games. Like Assassin's Creed is doing really well. Like Cyberpunk just sold 13 million units, even though it's an absolute bag of hot mess. Like we're selling these games like really, really well still. But like at the same time, 70% of the industry is still free to play outside of that. So the fact that these things are still coexisting, like I don't think there's any need to really worry that anything is going to like quote unquote go away forever. You know, like there will be some obviously companies that do swing that way. Like we've seen that with Apex Legends, like the people that make Titanfall, like Respawn, they've pretty much switched completely to free to play. And everyone's okay with that because the quality of Apex Legends is so high, and everyone is enjoying it who is playing it, who's into it, really love it. So like no one has any qualms with that. So as long as they're doing something good, I don't think it really matters. And I think Ubisoft expanding into that, if they can anyway, like that's another question if they ever can do that, because I think their biggest success, like the closest thing they've ever gotten to that, is Siege, which I think there are like 70 million players or something, which is a ridiculous amount.
That's the other thing. It can be hit and miss, but I guess with the nature of free to play games, their budget is so much smaller than like a AAA game that
it's worth the risk as well.
It's worth the risk because if it tanks, you haven't spent that much money. Whereas if and especially in this market now, where we know that like you say, Cyberpunk sold that 13 million, but if it was a great game, it would have got 13 million and probably 2 from us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, that could have been 15, 20 million easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Like
Ghost of Tsushima, that was one of the like a huge selling game, and it was a great game. So it shows that that you can sell games that are great, because we're living in this world where people think that you can release anything and it makes money, and what's the point? But there is a correlation between games that are well received and money. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is like Assassin's Creed, that was a huge game.
Yeah.
It's been well received, too big for us. Yeah. But there's a market for it.
Absolutely.
And they get bigger and bigger every year, and it sells a lot every year. So there's room for everyone, is basically it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Your IP, that's just where it gets a bit tricky. Where if you start messing with people's beloved IPs and start changing them, people get upset. Like, Assassin's Creed, over the course of its lifetime, it's gone to a place that doesn't resonate with me as much as the first 3. Mm-hmm. There are going to be the Titanfall fans that want a Titanfall 3 and don't want Apex Legends.
Yeah, and the question is, will they get it?
They're in the minority, though, aren't they?
Yeah,
because there's so many more people playing Apex Legends, and it's a money-generating business. It's not a charity, so
it's a bit too much money. Yeah, this is the thing. Like when you've got a studio and you can say, okay, split this team up that we've got into 10 little sections, right? Each one of those teams go off and try and make a free-to-play game. If 9 out of 10 of them games fail, and then the 10th one takes off, like, and that the success from that, because it's free to play, is just, we're talking different numbers. We're not talking like 1 million people, 2 million people, like a normal game that they would have made as an entire sort of unit as 10 people. You're talking about, okay, a free to play game takes off and it goes to 50 million. So it's worth the risk of you like messing up 9 times in a row to get to the 10th one. So like they can just keep doing this over and over again. I'm not like, I obviously, like I'm not that high up at Ubisoft. Like I have no idea if that is ever what they would do. But if that's the direction that the industry starts pushing into, like as a whole, like not just like at our company or anywhere else, but like, could you blame them for doing it? You know, like that's the thing. Like if you've got the potential to make the next Fortnite or the next Minecraft or the next Apex Legends or something,
Then
like
why
is it
wouldn't
worth
you?
the risk? Why wouldn't you? So
Especially if
it's
the point of entry is so small.
right.
well,
So it's interesting to see where it's going to go.
So if you had that same company and you were making one AAA game, it can be hit and miss, can't it? And if you put all your chips on that one IP, then that's going to be,
and it happens, and
money.
you can fail like at making free to play like just as easy, like if not a lot faster and a lot harder. Actually, you can hit rock bottom pretty quick. I mean, Ubisoft had just learned that lesson from Hyperscape.
Yes,
which that game came out flash in the pan. A lot of people played it when it was released, but like our numbers just went straight down and everyone stopped playing all at once pretty much. And it was like we just could not hold retention because there's just so much competition within that market as well. Like if you're talking about free to play FPS games, there's so many of them now. So many. Like it's hard to like hold anything within that market. So then
is the market saturated? So is that an option of, is that a reason not to do it? Like
this is because this is all new. Like we're sort of hitting this point where everyone is trying out free to play games. Everyone's trying to make a battle royale or one two sort of thing, and only a few of them are like breaking out above the sort of the crest of the hill. Like the fact that like we're just learning this sort of stuff as we go along. Like we don't know how this is going to turn out. We don't know who's going to be successful. We don't know if this is sustainable even. So it's going to be an interesting few years ahead of us.
Because I was playing Call of Duty Warzone, and that's like battle royale,
free to play.
And the gas comes in and it makes the map smaller. And I was just out of the loop with it. I was like, oh, it's just like Fortnite, and they were like, yeah, it's just like Fortnite. It's like, oh, okay, but it's Call of Duty, and it's like, interesting. Like it's different to my last Call of Duty, which is like Modern Warfare 2. Like totally different, like completely different games. So yeah, we're in that world at the moment. So I would prefer the older version of Call of Duty, I must say. Like
I think like anyone that is in their 30s would agree with that.
Is that nostalgia? Is that why is that?
I think we're living in this world now where if you're a kid and you've got an iPad and you can start up Fortnite on your iPad and you can play it anywhere and you can do anything, it's all about accessibility. Like I'm pretty sure that's like I keep hammering this home with people that have had conversation. Like I've talked about this with my wife as well, and I think it's just down to the accessibility of just being able to play these things absolutely anywhere. And the fact that they're free, the fact that the parents don't have to pay this massive barrier to entry of a new console, a game that is now going to be $70, I guess, like $70 in the US. And then they can start playing. Oh, that's before like the Xbox Live Gold or the PlayStation Plus account that you have to have just to play online. All of this sort of stuff. And they're just slowly getting stripped away. Like now you don't, like to play free to play games on Xbox, you don't need to have an Xbox Live account anymore. You don't need to do any of that. You can just play free to play games just on the system without any of that. They're stripping that away even further because now like a lot of these games you can stream and things like this, it's just becoming more and more accessible to these kids that are just like they don't have the money, they don't have the time, and you're just blowing out the market because you've got, instead of 10 million people that can afford a console versus the 100 million that can't afford a console but happen to have a phone or an iPad or an older console, or they've got a crappy PC that just manages to play whatever game they're playing. So a lot of it is to do with that, I think.
And it's funny how what you said before, where we thought the mobile game world was going to take over. It kind of has, but just in this context.
But that's, again, though, it hasn't taken over anything. Like it's definitely expanded out.
Yeah,
but there's still this pocket of like AAA games which the 30-year-olds are going to buy, and in 10 years' time, when the free-to-play market like expands out even further and it becomes 90%, there's still going to be that like this group of 40-year-olds in the middle that are just like, the next God of War got announced, like, and we're going to be them people, which is fine. Like it's good that they're still there and they're not like interfering with each other too much. And if it does get to the point where third parties, I think the only people that really are at risk in the long term anyway, not the short term, because I think it's going to be a long time before it happens. But in the long term, I think third parties are going to be the ones that find success with free-to-play games, and they are going to just be like, we financially cannot sustain an industry where people are only buying 10 million of our games at once, like, because it's just getting too big, it's getting too competitive. We just can't survive. Literally, we cannot survive. So we need to break out into these other type of games, which are the free-to-play games, especially if like 70% of the market is there. Like, yeah, I cannot blame anyone for wanting to go after that piece of pie. Like, yeah, it's gross. Yeah, it's about money. Yeah, you can attribute it to greed or whatever, but it's not. It's 70% of the market. Like, you can't not ignore that. It's too big.
Yeah, and of all the studios as well that's going to start doing this, and you think you put money on that could do it, even with the track record, I think Ubisoft got just as good a chance as anyone else to make a great free-to-play game.
Sure, I think, I mean, they've tasted success, like I said, with Siege. They haven't quite gotten to like Fortnite numbers or anything like that. But
you can't say why. You can't go, it's only because of X, Y, and Z. There's no reason why it failed, really, other than it's just people didn't play it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, though, like how they sort of step forward. But at the moment, like internally, I've not seen I've not seen evidence of them like just killing franchises and just switching like completely over to free to play. That's not what I've witnessed anyway. But I'm just not
tearing down statues of
right, exactly. Of like Ezio is like in the dumpster upside down or whatever. Yeah. Stuff like that. No, I mean it's sort of ludicrous that people sort of think that. So yeah, it's still a while off, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. And how much of a part it's going to play in E3, do we think?
Probably a big part, I guess, but I think they've got to look at their audience about who's actually going to be watching E3.
Like, kid's going to watch E3. Is it
all that 70%? Right, exactly. Yeah, because I think the majority of E3 watchers are the people that want them AAA games. You know, they're not the 70% of the free-to-play market. But at the same time, E3 isn't just for gamers. It's also for the stockholders, and they want the free-to-play games because they want to make money, so it makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it, because I can imagine there's going to be a lot more free-to-play stuff at this E3, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We've just got to learn how to pass it out if you're not into that sort of stuff, or just learn how to deal with it, because it's just, unfortunately, it is a part of the industry, and it's a big part of the industry now. But we will talk about that more next week. Do you want to tease it a little bit?
We'll be doing a E3 predictions show next week. Yay! Where we're going to go through what we think is going to be happening. I am really looking forward to what Vin thinks is going to be coming out of the Ubisoft studio.
I'm just going to leak everything, I think. That'll be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, and then giving my opinions, like what I think is going to happen at Ubisoft. You know, who are you going to believe?
Yeah, I will. It'll be interesting. We'll put it that way. So you should tune in. But yeah, thank you everyone very much for tuning in and listening to us this week. And if you do want to hear our opinions about E3 coming up, then make sure you like and subscribe, because we're going to be talking about a lot more of that in the coming weeks. Where can people find you, Chris?
They can find me on Twitter at Acrylic Pixel, and I think I'm Acrylic Pixel on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
What about you?
And you can find me, I am also on Twitter. I am at Hillfort Games. I work on little indie stuff, but I also post up quite a bit of concept art and stuff. Being an Ubisoft concept artist, you can see some of the stuff which I've done for, I think I've got some stuff up for Watch Dogs Legion. I think there's some concepts floating around on my profile. Yes. I think they're pinned at the moment. Yep. So if you're into that, then go and check it out. But I also, like I said, work on little indie stuff as well, much like Chris. So if you're into that, then please give a like, give a follow. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we do upload a new episode or a new clip, if you don't like listening to all this sort of stuff long form. But until next time, we'll catch you later. So, ta-ta.
Bye-bye.